Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 4th, 2016 West Fargo City Commission meeting. I'm Commissioner Mike Thorstad. I'll be filling in for Mayor Mattern as he will be back later this week from holiday. So I think the first order of the agenda or the schedule tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. You have the, Commissioners, you got the agenda in front of you. Is there any additions or corrections or?
Make a motion to approve the order agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. One note on the agenda, item 1 is a public hearing which is scheduled for 5:45, so that will be backed up until we reach 5:45. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the December 21st, 2015 meeting.
We'll make a motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have building reports in front of you. Got another good year. 2016 holds for it. Any questions on the building permit? Comments? Okay, hearing none, are there any commissioner committee reports? None? All right, we'll move on to consent agenda. I hear a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to the regular agenda, we'll go to item number 2, which is Sewer, Water, Storm, and Street Improvement District number 1279, Phase 2, 9th Street Northwest Realignment, a request for a change order approval. Kevin, you can handle that?
I'll try. In your packet, you actually have the change order document. It was to Gladden Construction. This was up on the County 19 realignment. We were actually realigning that roadway, and it went through the part of the old stockyards property. We anticipated there'd be some material that was unsuitable to build on, so we actually bid it with some quantity, a minor quantity of excavation, but when we actually had it tested by Braun and we actually did soil borings out there, we found that it was it got to be a considerable amount. In this term, it turns out to be about 19,000 cubic yards. It ranged from 4 feet to 20 feet deep of actual manure, hides, just some nasty stuff that was, you could load it on a truck and hauled it away because it was couldn't be built on. So, there again, we probably could have alleviated this if we'd have done more borings and defining the scope and the area of it. At the end of the day, we knew it was going to be X, and it was, might as well just start digging and haul it away. And we did. So based on it's over $100,000, our policies to come back to the commission to approve. I mean, there really isn't, the only other alternative was not to realign the road. Would have been the only other option, not to move it.
Very good. Any questions or Kevin or comments? Hearing none, I'd look for a motion if we could have one.
A motion to approve the change order.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the change order request. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 3 is Water Improvement District number 1260. It's a 1.5 million gallon elevated water storage tower. Approve a change order of $114,000. Kevin again.
There again, we're putting in a new tower at the old Public Works site, basically replacing that existing tower with a new one. It came up that what we've bid in our project was to actually drive in pilings under more of a traditional type. When I say drive piling in, is you see the hammer and they're dropping the big weight down and literally driving it. It was talked about looking at a different installation, was to go to these auger cast piles, which then would eliminate some of the pounding, of which then being in those existing neighborhoods and businesses and properties, the risk issue there is how much transmits to the adjacent property owners and things of that nature. So we looked at the cost of doing this. It was $182,000. If we do it when there's no restrictions, they can get down to $68,000. So basically, that's where the $114,000 comes from. Would be just a better construction method, less intrusive to the neighbors and the pounding and the things going on. So when we looked at it, I'd ask that the commission approve the change order to CBI Nikon for $114,000. It's really just an alternative foundation system.
Thank you. Any questions or comments by the commissioners? Hearing none, entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the change order. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It's not 5:45 yet. Maybe I should talk a little slower. But we'll go to number 4, the appointments to the Metro Cog Policy Board. Currently, we've had one member on there and one alternate. I think Mark Simmons, were you not the member, and Mark Wentz was the alternate?
Correct.
And beginning the first of the year, I believe we now have 2 positions on that board. And then we also need an alternate. So I guess we need to decide on who we would like to be the representatives and the alternates. And I guess I'd open up to the commission as to any suggestions we might have.
Thank you. I talked to Commissioner Wentz about it, and if it's okay with you guys, I think that I'll continue to be a member. Commissioner Wentz will be a member, and then we'll elect 2 alternates, which would be Chris and Larry, to his surprise. And I think by reading the bylaws, we can do that, and then I think we're pretty well covered all the way across the board.
Good.
Sound good to everybody up here too?
Fine with that.
Chris and Larry, you okay with?
Okay with that? You're welcome.
Sounds like a reasonable suggestion. Would you like to make that as a
I'll
motion?
make that as a motion.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to appoint Commissioner Simmons and Commissioner Wentz as the MetroCog board members and Public Works Director, and our Planning Director as the alternates. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Guess we're still not to 5:45, so Chris, you want to make a presentation?
Certainly. As you all know, we're trying to find alternative methods of funding Cheyenne Street. And as part of this, we had a video produced that we'll be able to put on the media, on any type of social media, and also send out to all members of legislators. So this is what came out, and with your approval, we'll be able to
We cannot wait years down the road. We knew it would be challenging, but we had no idea it would be this bad.
I would never, ever let my family walk or bike along Cheyenne Street.
We can't safely have our officers stand on the side of the road without fear of them being hit. What we need to do is reconstruct this road from this little lazy rural road to actually a major urban arterial. Cheyenne Street, we're going to be reconstructing that from 13th Avenue south all the way to 40th Avenue. It's been rated as a top #1 priority in the metropolitan area by the Fargo-Moorhead Metropolitan Council of Governments. That's not only West Fargo, but it's Fargo, Moorhead, Dilworth, Cass, and Clay counties. We asked the public through that process, what is the largest priority that the metro area needs? And every one of them, from the homemaker to the businessman to the transportation professional, all said Cheyenne Street needs to be done.
As I personally live along Cheyenne Street, I've noticed even in the last few years a change in the amount of the traffic, but not only that, the frustration of the traffic. If I was to leave work between 5 and 5:30 on any given day and try and head south onto Cheyenne Street, I would end up sitting in traffic for at least a half an hour. In fact, one time I sat at the intersection of 13th Avenue to turn onto Cheyenne Street, and I sat through 4 left turn signals.
We have traffic backed up onto I-94 trying to get off that off-ramp to get onto Cheyenne Street. A lot of times, close to half mile. So you got this car sitting in the through lane on the interstate, sitting dead stopped, waiting to try to get off. You have these guys speeding behind them 70 miles an hour, that they see them stopped. So that's just a huge safety issue.
We're having businesses that have made major investments along the corridor move in and then come back and say, we knew it would be challenging, but we had no idea it would be this bad. So they're forced to have their employees not come into the business if they can go right to a customer's home, or adjust their business hours, or even worse, take unnecessary risks to get in and out of the road during peak traffic times. I've had developers say that they will not continue development in a particular area along Cheyenne Street until the corridor is finished. Especially when it comes to retail development, they will look at that parcel and say, we're not going to put in a retail store that people can't get in and out efficiently.
And it's gone up to, 14,000, 15,000 cars a day near the interstate. Projections are showing us that we're going to be expanding to 25,000 cars and higher. What we need to do is reconstruct this road from this little lazy rural road to actually a major urban arterial.
Cheyenne Street experiences nearly 40 crashes per year. Of those accidents, approximately 10% are resulting in injury.
It just, people get so frustrated that they pull out when they don't have room or they don't have time. And it creates a very, very unsafe, scary atmosphere.
Response times take sometimes as much as a routine call to take 17 to 20 minutes to actually get an officer on scene south of the interstate utilizing Cheyenne Street. Our emergency response times have increased a little bit. Now the problem that we come into is when we are actually responding on Cheyenne Street, we become part of the traffic problem, because as we are driving emergency with our lights and siren on, we're forcing people to move out of the way and disrupting the traffic flow. There's just not even enough room to get the cars through that intersection. We can't do patrol work south of the interstate on Cheyenne Street because we become part of the traffic problem. We can't turn around on a vehicle. We can't safely have our officers stand on the side of the road without fear of them being hit.
A couple years ago, we had a young lady that died in a car accident down there, and that is just unacceptable. And for safety reasons, is really probably the best reason that we need to do this.
I would never, ever let my family walk or bike along Cheyenne Street.
Currently, there's no ways for people on bikes or pedestrians to get from the south part of our community to the north part of our community, which is hindering not only our downtown development, but development down south.
And a lot of people are going to wonder, why haven't we addressed these issues before? Well, we're trying to improve the entire transportation systems. So we've reconstructed 32nd Avenue, 40th Avenue. We've done Veterans Boulevard as a north-south. We've done many intersections. We've signalized them. We've widened them on Cheyenne Street, added turn lanes, any type of ways we can increase capacity and increase safety. And to do that has all been done with local funds. We spent close to $50 million of local funds to help ourselves. And it's getting very difficult to keep going back to the same bucket trying to find funds to pay for these projects. We're trying to find as many different types of funding that we possibly can. We've used urban funding from the federal government and local funds, and we really need to come up with another $26 million to save that from burdening our taxpayers.
We have to do something. We cannot wait years down the road. The sooner we get this project together and get it done, the better.
Very well done.
I was fairly impressed with it, so I think that's what we're planning to send out and just get that discussion going and get the awareness built that we really have an issue here, so, thank you.
Perfect, Chris, thank you.
You.
What's the next step, Chris? They had a public meeting about 2-3 weeks ago that was well attended. What is the next step for the general public?
Cheyenne Street corridor is, we're going to be moving into the environmental document, which is like the project concept report, and we're working on an RFP to put, to get engineering service for that next section, and the DOT will be participating with this, with that portion of it.
Okay.
And we anticipate that'll be about the next year, and then once we get the clearance on there, they'll start to the design and keep moving forward.
So the earliest we may have activity as far as getting something done would be
With
late
the areas,
2017,
we're
2018?
looking at, right now for phase one, to be 2016, and that'd be from Cheyenne Street to 94, and then in, no, excuse me, 17. 17 for phase one, and then 18 would be from I-94 to 32nd, and then 19, 32nd to 40th. So it'll be a 3-year process.
From 13th Avenue to the interstates, phase one.
Phase one, and that'd be in 17. So we'll be designing that this year.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
It is beyond 5:45, so we'll go to item 1, which is a public hearing on Sandhills' third edition rezoning from agricultural to light industrial and the first reading. And in a moment, we'll have the public part of that, this hearing. And if you wish to speak on the subject, we'd ask that you'd please come to the podium and state your name and address so our clerk can get it in the record. But prior to that, Larry, are you going to take this?
Yes, Your Honor. So I'll start the information based on the staff report that was put together for the development. I'm gonna pull it up. Okay, Tim will pull it up here as we get going. The development here is proposed on the west end of the community. It's about 38, nearly 39 acres of area located north of Main Avenue and west of 26th Street Northwest. The city land use plan depicts the area as light industrial. Proposed preliminary plat is not consistent with some provisions of city ordinances, though the intended uses are consistent with the city plans and ordinances. The applicant has previously applied for a preliminary plat earlier in 2015, or in the fall of 2015. The application was denied. As a result of that, the developer reapplied and included more right-of-way as part of the current proposed plat. The applicant owns a significant portion of property within the Sandhills and Meadowbrook Park area and is proposing a phased development starting with property to the north near the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. The area here was designated as light industrial in both the 2000 and 2008 comprehensive plans. The Meadowbrook Park subdivision, which is primarily located south of Charles Avenue, is currently named and platted to the interstate, was all developed back in the 1950s. Lots were not sold very quickly, and a number of the lots were then auctioned off or lotteried off at the state fair. Historically, the area has had seasonably high water tables and poor drainage. Prior to the creation of the Cheyenne diversion, the area was also extremely flood prone. The lots, as platted, are too small to support single-family structures per the state plumbing code as well as Cass County standards for septic systems. As a result, some of the property owners were able to assemble several lots together to provide for a given structure, and even at that, most are too small to support septic systems. The area was severely flooded in '75, which resulted in Cass County Health attempting to get a collection system, sewage collection system in the area. They applied to the Department of Housing and Urban Development for relief, which was not funded. And then subsequently they applied to Farmers Home Administration, today known as Rural Development, and they also looked at it and felt that it was an unwise investment, and so it was not funded. The area came into the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction in the mid-1980s, following several requests for additions to existing residences and new residences which could not meet the county plumbing standards for septic systems. The city undertook a study of the area in 1998. Due to the study, it was determined that the cost of extending services would be too burdensome for the majority of the property owners at the time, and so it was recommended to wait for ownership stability and the city growing out to the area to reduce the cost of extending services out there. Even at that time, there were quite a number of lots that had gone back to the county for back taxes. In 2000, the city adopted a comprehensive plan after about 18 months of study. Within the comprehensive plan, it was determined that the optimal use for the area would be light industrial, and so it was designated as such. The plan had recommended that the city pursue community development block grant funding to buy out existing properties and prepare the area for redevelopment. The city pursued the federal funding. However, property buyouts for redevelopment was not viewed as a priority on the regional scale, so the city was discouraged from even submitting an application. In 2002, the Metropolitan Council of Governments undertook another study at the request of the City Commission to try to wade through the issues in the area and work with the residents and identify possible alternative strategies to consider. At that time, of the 218 lots in Meadowbrook Park, 107 had come back to the county for back taxes. Of the remaining 111 lots, 59 were undeveloped and owned by individuals that lived outside the area. The remaining 48 lots were owned by residents, and not all of them had structures on, not all of them were contiguous, but there were 17 residential structures in existence at that time. In 2005, the area was annexed into the city, and in 2008 is when we began seeing developer-driven platting for the area. We received a plat for Sandhills 3rd edition, which was not finalized by the developer, and then again earlier last fall with this plat currently being reviewed. The particular subdivision plat is proposing to vacate Sandhills Avenue Northwest, subdivide the larger existing blocks in Sandhills, second edition, into lots for sale and development. There's a portion of Meadowbrook Park that is being included within the plat, particularly Charles Avenue Northwest, which is being renamed to 4th Avenue Northwest, and some residential lots that were originally platted under Meadowbrook Park. The lots that are being incorporated within the plat are all owned by the developer. The area plan for the development shows that there is the railroad to the north, as well as a municipal, well, not a municipal, but a landfill, inert landfill. To the west is the Sandhill Archer facility. To the south is primarily undeveloped land with the residential structures interspersed in there. And to the east is part of the Butler Industrial Park, which is nearing full development. The proposed preliminary plat is made up of 21 lots in 4 blocks, utilizing 4th Avenue Northwest as the primary street accessing the development. It's intended to be a phased development, so the development will continue in phases to the south. The initial phase does not include any residential structures. However, there is concern that there would be impact to the entire area. I would note that there are more regional type facilities and services that have already been provided for by the commission that will be under construction, that being 26th Street Northwest, as well as sewer and water facilities in that corridor, and 8th Avenue Northwest, which would be north of the railroad tracks. The right-of-ways that are proposed for the plat would, for the most part, be meeting the commercial or industrial minimum right-of-way requirements. There are a couple areas, one along 26th Avenue Northwest, which does not meet the minimum right-of-way standards, as that is impacted by a property that's developed with a residential structure, and then also along 4th Avenue Northwest, which is a single residential lot without a structure. It's vacant, owned by another party, and there would be inadequate right-of-way in that area. For the full right-of-way to be developed with needed facilities, there may need to be condemnation to provide for adequate right-of-way should the design not adequately address that. Subdivision area was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission earlier in 2015 as part of urban development area, and looking at establishing a tax increment financing district, which was approved by the commission. The TIF district really incorporates only the area that is currently being platted, doesn't include the entire area. With the TIF district eligible costs, there is the potential of purchasing residential structures. However, again, there are no residential properties that are included within the area that was identified in Phase 1 TIF. We did send out notices to property owners within or adjacent to the area. At the Planning and Zoning Commission, we held a hearing. There was considerable concern by primarily residential property owners in the area although there were also comments submitted by Sandhills Archers. Those comments that we received in email or letter form, you have as part of your packet. And they can be discussed further at the public hearing portion. The pros for the development, it is consistent with zoning and industrial use of the area per the land use plan. Cons for the development is proposed. There's some planning around lots that are not owned by the applicant, which create some potential property redevelopment and maintenance issues. The area for right-of-ways were not fully included. And sewer and water plan had not been developed earlier. I would point out that within your packet, and since the developer brought the request forward for a public hearing notice, there is some discussion to that in your packet. We did receive a letter from the city engineer indicating that sewer and water and right-of-ways were looked at and discussed between Public Works and city engineering. So there's a plan to address those two issues. The other issue really of concern to the Planning and Zoning Commission was the potential impact to the residents and Sandhills Archers and how to address them, and that primarily would relate to special assessments, which the Planning Commission really didn't have any way of addressing, and those specific issues were not addressed by the developer. So at the November 9th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, they recommended denial of the application based on those primary concerns that were identified. And as mentioned, the developer brought forward the request to move forward and hold a public hearing on the issue at the December 7th, I believe, the earlier December City Commission meeting, and that brings forward the hearing this evening. I guess with that, I'd be open for any questions. Again, it is a public hearing. I believe there are residents here as well as Sandhills Archers and the developer as well that can speak to these issues.
Okay, before we get to the public hearing portion of it, I've got just a question for you, Larry. This question at hand tonight is rezoning of the property. Are there additional steps that will come after, if it happened to get approved for rezoning? Are there additional steps in the process? So this, if we approve this is not necessarily a done deal.
Correct. Tonight would only be the first reading on the rezoning. The second reading for the rezoning would take place at a subsequent meeting, potentially the next meeting of the City Commission. And then the plat would also be considered at that time, should the agreements be all in place.
And there'd be additional probably hearings on TIF districts and as far as special assessment districts. And I think the concern, I would, reading from some of the letters, is the concern of the residents around there that they may have to help foot the bill for the development costs in this development.
Now, the way the phase one of the TIF was approved by the commission, only the area that is outlined there in the blue to the north side was addressed within that TIF. So that TIF would lock in any public costs for the district. The area that is south of that area would be in a future TIF, and so there could not be any costs within the current TIF district for areas that are outside that area. there would be subsequent plats, TIF districts, and rezonings to follow in the subsequent phases.
Excuse me, Mike. You also asked the question about the special assessments. The special assessments yes, they are totally separate from what this is. This is just a zoning issue, and then there'll be the plating issue, and the projects themselves and the cost of the projects are going to be a totally separate issue from this. The projects that the city has already approved and that have started construction that were directed by us to start, like 26th and, the diversion road and all those, any assessments from those and how they're spread will be handled through, again, the special assessment committee and then back to you guys again. Those will go on regardless of whatever is done with this. So the improvements within that block that's owned by the gentleman over here, those, as Larry said, will become part of the TIF district that you guys had approved. But bear in mind that the other assessments, the projects that we've already approved and already started to construct, those are going to be spread on everybody regardless.
Well, yeah, the regional ones that,
Yeah.
There's Main Avenue too. I don't know how far out that will be assessed. I don't know if that's been determined yet. But,
Yeah.
They
are in the
I just
district
think
for that
people
too.
have to understand that if this was approved, and I'm not saying it's going to be, that doesn't mean they have no additional say in the further steps it takes to get this completed, this process complete.
Correct. There will be multiple hearings, and at those hearings, if they wanted to request some kind of reduction or something from the special assessments or the burden or whatever, that's the time when they would have to do that.
The improvements in this district are not going to be burdensome to those residents south of this. This is going to be confined to the, as he put it, the border area.
Not those ones, no.
Right.
They won't affect them at all.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear.
To answer your question, Tina, on some of these regional ones, when the first developments start in this new subdivision, we are going to have to put in as an example, a sanitary lift station that to date, we could design one that would only serve that amount of blocks, but it would be somewhat short-sighted that in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years, someone's going to want development south of there and further south of there. So it's just like anything else. The bulk of the assessments will probably stay within that area, but there will be some region, even local regional within that quarter section of land that would, in the past, we as a city have tried to put it in once right the first time versus getting down to putting in 2 blocks at a time, because what we're going to do is replicate costs that will only burden some of the properties even more. So I just want to make sure you understand that there's going to be some, unless the TIF is amended or the TIF exceeds the value and pays all the specials, then it could be somewhat of a moot point. That's provided you approve future TIFs and they build something that would generate enough.
Well, therein lies the problem, obviously, and I'm sure when we get to the public portion here, we'll have that pointed out to us probably by several folks. That is the challenge, is how to not overly burden these residents that are in there. They're going to be burdened already. And that will be the challenge we obviously face.
Do we know now, Kevin, what the assessments are on those homes at all? In the, in the work we're doing, obviously, we've already done Main Avenue, et cetera. What are the assessments on those properties from that project alone? Regional. Please wait, sir, till you'll get your chance.
We did estimate some dollars for 26th and.
Pardon?
We did estimate some dollars for 26th and for Diversion Road and for Main Avenue. I can't tell you the exact dollar per square foot. Do you have it up?
We've estimated about 30 cents a square foot.
As of right now. But they're gonna get regardless, correct?
Just those existing projects, yes. Now, we haven't met with the assessment board, we haven't even.
Right, this
gotten done with construction yet, so those are really rough ballpark numbers, but at first brush,
But I guess I'm referring to Main Avenue. Are they getting assessed?
Yes.
that includes Main Avenue.
We've already done the project. Wouldn't we already had to have it assessed out?
There's a phase 2 that's gonna get
Oh,
constructed.
that's phase 3.
Well, phase 2 of phase.
Phase 2.
Phase 2 of Phase 3.
Phase 2 of phase 3, yeah.
It's gonna get constructed in 16, and so it's anticipated that at the end of this coming year, we will be certifying the assessments on that project.
We created the assessment district almost 2 years ago. We won't be actually having the hearings on how it's apportioned or split or who pays what until, at best, it'll be the fall of 16. It might not even be assessed until the fall of,
Is that because of closeout, when it closes out
because
the
of
project?
the construction, we won't have the final dollars, I'm guessing, by August, and that's kind of our typical cutoff date for projects that we would be assessing this year, so
So the people out there right now have no idea what they're paying for those specials yet, even though I just heard someone say
we
too
had
much, you
public
don't
meetings
know.
where we gave ranges, and here again,
Okay.
we don't have the final numbers, and if you talk to the people on Main Avenues, this was addressed at the public meetings where it was X dollars a square foot and so much a front foot and things of that nature. And everyone who's ever talked to me from Meadowbrook has also expressed they shouldn't pay any and don't want to pay any, and so it's not that they've not expressed that from day one of the first hearings of
Right.
Main Avenue. It's been an ongoing issue. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
Before we open the public hearing, any other comments, questions from the commission or staff?
Do we want to hear Mike, the side before you?
I'll let him speak it. So, okay, hearing no additional questions or comments, we'll open up the public hearing. And again, please, if you'd like to speak, step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record. Is there anyone that would like to provide public comment?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Jim Bullis, and I'm here on behalf of Adam Fisher, the landowner and the petitioner on this rezoning request and plat request. I know we're going to hear a lot about special assessments coming up, but I do want to just reiterate one more time that what we're here tonight asking for is rezoning of this property for commercial use and also replatting of the property consistent with what Larry described. And I won't rehash Larry's dissertation of what's happened so far, but I do want to point out that there is a letter in your packet from Dustin Scott. We've met with Moore Engineering on a couple of occasions, just to make sure that, you know, there are a couple spots that Larry correctly pointed out where we don't have the typical city right-of-way. We don't have what the city standards call for. However, part of that's already on 26. That's the project the city's doing anyways. And we have met with Dustin to make sure that they've got a workable solution for right-of-way on the, I'll call it the east-west, because I think it is, road on the plat, that where there's a little bit, we were missing some of the property. So we do, you know, we have taken steps to make sure that if we are approved, and if sometime down the road the city were to approve local improvements, we do have a way to get through there without causing any additional heartache for the city. We can squeeze all the utilities through there. So I think we've answered all of the questions and issues that city engineering and public works had with regard to the effectiveness of this system if it were to get built. But again, what I don't want to point out here is that we have TIF number 1, I'll call it, and this property that my client has cobbled together. This is kind of the next logical step, is to get this property zoned for the use for which we sort of intend to make it, and also then get it platted so we can further sell off parcels of this property to people to generate that property tax that makes a TIF work. Otherwise, you know, unless we can get that incremental increase, of course, the TIF is really useless. And I know that on a separate issue, one of the property owners just kind of in that southeast corner here, you know, I think there's some current concern that current resident, you know, that we're platting around him, and we're going to make it hard for that person to redevelop their property, perhaps, if they decide they want to be something other than a residential use down the road. And we have laid that out a little bit in our office, and it, you know, looks like meeting all the city setbacks, you could put a 12,000-foot, warehouse or pole structure, not unlike the new ones along the interstate, with plenty of parking, and make that work from a commercial use. Now, that may not be what that gentleman wants to do, but at least, we're taking or we think we're taking the steps we can to make sure we're not gonna step on other people's ability in the future to redevelop their property for different use. And again, if you have any questions of the developer, I can certainly try and field them at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Bolus? Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other public comments? Sir?
My name's Tim Cocaine, and I live at 204 Park Boulevard. We've been annexed in for 10 years. I cannot sell my house. I can't move out of there. What do I do? I don't want to live in an industrial park. When I bought the house, it wasn't an industrial park. That's not what I was looking for in a house. So what can I do with my house right now, is my question.
Can't sell it?
No, I've talked to a few realtors, and the problem would be that no one could get a loan to buy my house.
Is it manufactured?
No, it's
Or
a
is it just
it's a
because
house.
of where it's at? So you don't think that if we develop that area, that would bring some value to your property?
No, I can't see how anybody would ever buy it as a house in an industrial park.
Well, I would say they'd probably buy it and tear it down and.
Well,
make
why
it-
don't we do that before we start making an industrial park? And it's been 10 years right now.
Have the developers talked to you guys about any of
Never.
that?
We've talked to them at the meeting here before, but nobody's ever made us an offer to buy our house.
Well, and I understand that, because we're in that preliminary, talk of all this. I mean, I haven't even rezoned it yet, so I can understand why they probably haven't made you that offer, but is that your intentions, Adam? Is your intentions to make these people, this particular gentleman especially, is that your intention to make him an offer?
Should I get up here?
Yes,
Absolutely.
please.
No, oh, sure.
I'm Adam Fisher. Yeah, our intention is to, well, first of all, where this gentleman lives isn't on the road at all. He's not on where we're replatting. I think you're a block.
I'm a block south, yeah.
Block south. So, I mean, I gotta get started somewhere. And after our last meeting, my partner and I had plenty of discussions over it, and we hired a third party to go out to each parcel or occupied home, not empty lots,
Right.
not abandoned structures, to occupied houses. Basically give us a value, and we're gonna give them written offers and see where it goes from there. I mean, we've made some offers to a couple different people, not this gentleman, but, and it didn't go well, so we have to come up with an alternative, and getting a third party, I guess, involved, maybe that might be a solution. But as far as his home goes, it's too far south for us right now I mean, I gotta get through one hurdle before you get to the next.
But it's going to put a lot of traffic into a residential area that's developed
Well,
as a
it may or
residential.
may not, depending upon what happens up in that part of, what he actually what goes up there. So I hear you.
I mean, we've been doing construction now for how many years out there? It's getting in and out of there is a pain, the way it is. There's trucks hauling. They start 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and they're still running at 9 o'clock at night. And if the weather is good, they're hauling. I have light shining in from FedEx into my house right now. That's an industrial park to me.
I understand.
Well,
And
thanks.
But it was owned as an industrial park over where FedEx is at. I mean, it has been for a while. So, I mean, that's nothing
It
new.
wasn't when I moved out there, though.
Well, it may not have been, but I mean, nothing is.
And
forever.
I understand this. I think it should be turned into something. But I think the people should be out of there before it happens.
But I hear you guys, but from their perspective, I mean, they're trying to develop a piece of property, first of all, that doesn't have those costs associated with it, okay, which I'm guessing is what your plan is that correct? Try to keep your costs down, and it's also a lot easier to work with. Our concern here is to make sure that it's as fair for everybody as it possibly can be. It's never going to be perfect, it just won't be, you guys. So if he comes to you guys with a, fair appraisal of your properties and you choose to take that or not take that, I mean, that's up between you and him. Our goal here is to make sure that those values are appraised to today's numbers, not after they build some more stuff up on that. So those are the numbers that he has to live with, okay? We want to make it fair for all of you. Like I said, it's not going to be perfect, but it also has to work for him too. It has to work for the developer, it has to work for you guys. You've been out there for a long, long time, we get that. That's why we're having such.
I've been trying to get
That's why
out
we're
there
having
for
such a
a long,
tough,
long time, too.
that's why we're having such a tough deal with this, okay? And it's difficult for us, because we want to make it right for everybody. It's never going to be perfect.
No, it's just, I mean, it's going on, it's 10 years since we've been annexed in, and nothing's happened.
I know.
And we just sit there, we can't move. I've wanted to move many times, and I can't.
It's just one of those pieces of property there, again, that's going to be really tough to, do anything with residential side. I mean, it's not happening. Larry's already, talked about that.
And even when we were annexed in, they did it with the Butler addition, so we didn't even have enough votes to even make a hill bit of beans about it, It's just we've been kind of pushed around out there, and it's...
I get it, I hear you.
All right, well, thanks.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the public?
My name is Gene Zacco. I live in North Fargo. I lived in Meadowbrook for a number of years. And I found trying to get permits from the city was totally impossible to improve my property. My solution was I moved out. I still have the property there, and I've had some mighty fine offers from people who want to develop my small piece of property, and it's for sale. Problem. When I hear what they want to do, I tell them, go see the city of West Fargo first. They come back to me and they say, we can't get the permits, therefore we won't buy the property. My property is for sale, and I've had some good offers. But if I can't get the money for it, it's not worth anything, is it? Now there's a development program going out there by Mr. Fisher, and I see it's a good program. I'm in agreement with his program. He pays so much for a square foot of dirt. That's fair. The problem is people have houses there. They have their blood, sweat, and tears there. But that's worth nothing. So now I got a piece of property I can sell, but I can't because the city won't give the small developer the permits. So I can't sell the property. So my property is worth basically nothing. Now, development is going on out there, and they want to tax somebody for that. Who are you going to tax? Do you know what an oxymoron is? You're trying to get more money out of people out there for the taxes, but you won't give them anything for their property? Is this fair government? Someone has to have an answer here. Harry Truman had a sign on his desk that said, "The buck stops here." So where does it stop? Someone has to make the decision, and gentlemen, I think you're intelligent enough to do that. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
Yeah, my name is Chris Gibbons. I live at 2640 Gress Avenue. And what I think is we're going to take that water fund and we're going to seek some intelligent advice. Probably somebody who's licensed in this state and another. And I think that's all I need to say.
I'm
Because
not
we're
sure.
kind of in a bad spot. I'm not sure what that
I'm
means.
not sure I understand what your concern is.
We're going to seek legal advice. We're going to, as a group, we're going to go seek legal advice.
We have
I
a right
think
to
that's
do
our
that,
best
obviously.
thing to see where we stand. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any additional public comment? Second time, is there any additional public comment? Before we close that portion, I'll give you one last opportunity. Any additional public comment? Hearing or seeing none, I guess we'll close that and come back to the commission for comments, questions.
You know, we've been in this pickle for I don't know how many years, so I don't know. I don't have the answer for you folks how to get out of this either. I wish we could get one developer to come in and buy you all out. Fortunately, that's not realistic. It's not feasible for Mr. Fisher to do that, and it's not feasible for the city to walk out there and purchase your property. So, I don't know the answer, guys, on this one. I mean, we've been through this many, many years now.
Well, we'll allow you the public comment, but if you'd like to comment, go ahead. We want to get everyone's
We're
comments.
sorry you can't hear so good.
Okay,
We probably didn't even need to say that.
we'll allow him to speak.
I would just like to say that
Your name, sir, and
I'm Gerald Fornchill, and I live at 2624 Gress Avenue.
thank you.
And I don't understand, when the city took over the lots out there, bought these lots, they bought them from the county, they paid the taxes or something, and the city got the lots. Okay, the city bought them out. Why can't the city buy us out? I mean, same difference.
We paid $1, sir, for those lots, $1 per lot. That's what we paid. I was there when we did that. There's a big difference
When
between
I-
$1 and what some of you folks want. Honestly, I'm just being.
From the county.
From the county, $1 per lot, that's what we paid. That's a big difference from what you folks want, so, I mean, that's, you know,
Well,
it's,
that's true, but still, you wanted that land, you knew what you were getting into, that you'd have to buy the rest out or do something with us when you.
we did, and part of the
Bought them out.
process was to try to get developers to come out there. The problem we're having, it's not that nobody wants to buy you out, sir, or you folks, it's that we have to figure out how to come up with the financing to do it, and that's basically up to private sector developers to come and do. I think they're willing to work with you all, but you have to realize that they have to do it in sections to generate revenue, to pay for everything as well. It's not that, they don't have the money just to come and buy every area out at one time. And they just mentioned they're working with a third party to come out and talk to you folks, so, you know, let's see what that process brings. If you continue to come and say, no, 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 what are we supposed to do?
I don't know.
I don't either.
The developer isn't wanting to pay anything either because they bought out the property along 26th Avenue, and they didn't buy it for near what it's worth. I mean, they took this poor woman that had just lost her husband, and she had nowhere to do or nothing to do, so they bought the lot from her for a little or nothing. And that's what they want to offer for the man that died over there on Sherrill Avenue. They went in there and offered him $15,000 for his lot and his house and a nice garage and a couple of good sheds. Why should they offer that kind of money?
Adam, we're going to let you respond to that, okay?
Anyway, thank you for your time.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you.
Come, step up.
I guess I don't know if we want to get into a debate on what I offer, but.
No, we don't need to get into that, but.
I would explain, sorry.
Please.
The lady that her husband passed away, I didn't have a representative. I just was on my own. She had a realtor represent her, and, which made me more than happy because she wasn't in a position to negotiate, she had a representative. So I didn't feel as though that we pulled one over on her. She was represented, so.
And her realtor agreed to it, and she agreed to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, so.
Yeah, he was working for her. He didn't work for me. He
It's
was
his
with
job
Pfeiffer-
to work for her, so
He was
he
with
better know.
Pfeiffer's Real Estate. I'd never met him in my life before that day.
Okay, thank you.
Adam, one other question. How much land do you own south of that, what you're planning on developing? How many lots?
Do we have?
They have that map, they can pull that up there.
I don't know how to pull that up there, I guess. Beyond me holding this in front of you guys.
I guess what I'm wondering is, do you own the land all south of the residence too, as well, or how much are we talking?
A significant portion. The percentage is less. The reason we started to the north is because we owned more.
Right.
If we were in here for requesting rezoning for the south half, I don't know if I would have came.
I guess what I'm looking at is, and why I'm bringing that up, what I'm looking at is, we've got the residents over here that are concerned, what are they gonna get paid, what are they worth? And if we let you develop north and around them to the south, when are we gonna take care of them? When are we gonna get that settled, and when are we gonna move forward? And I guess I would like, and I know tonight we're only talking the zoning, but I would like to hear what's the solution, what's the plan, what's the timeline? So it's not this debate by debate by debate, and these poor folks are wondering when they're going to get taken care of.
Okay.
Or when we have a solution or agreement.
I would, right now, with the highlighted, what's highlighted up there, the orange blocks are the occupied residences that are affected by today. So you have just above 26th, or above 4th Avenue on the corner there at 26th Street. And then the two different ones that are to the west a little bit. There's one single, and then there's a kind of an L shape there where the person lives on the South Avenue, but it butts up to that street that we would like to put in. The yellow blocks are occupied structures that aren't affected by today. So, or I shouldn't say that, by the street we'd put in our rezoning. So you have a total of 10 or 11 occupied structures out there. There's a couple more, but we bought and rented them out. So I guess to answer your question, as time comes, we would make them offers and they would buy their property, I guess.
Have you been, Adam, have you been going through, like you mentioned, a third party? That's what got my curiosity.
Well, I haven't done that before.
But you're going to start that,
Yes,
right?
yeah, we're starting that already. I've already started the process. Okay, leading up to this point, we never really concentrated on houses. We were just concentrating on everyone knows the history. We were trying to concentrate on cleaning up the lots that we could make bigger blocks, bigger areas. And after that, it will, the houses move on to that, I guess. The south, like I've said before, the south we didn't concentrate on that much because it's tougher. So I had to get something going. And with 26th Street and the diversion road, if you add up the specials that I'm gonna get, let's say that nothing happens. We just move on and I sit there with a piece of property, we're gonna get $1 million in specials off that. That's pretty significant. And that's if nothing happens and we all just kind of continue on as we are, so.
Do you understand Commissioner Wentz's concerns, which is all of our concerns, okay? And it's also definitely those people back there's concerns is that, you're gonna start developing this thing, the evaluations are gonna go down, and by the time we get around to, actually buying these people out or offering these people a buyout, instead of their property being worth this, it's gonna be worth this.
Right.
Get where we're coming from?
I understand.
We want it to be fair to those people today, and today's dollars, not what it's gonna be 3 years from now, when we have a light industrial park up there that's developed, and all of a sudden their property from that same appraiser you're using is not as valuable. We're not gonna be very happy.
I understand that. I guess I'm not an expert on.
I'm not either, but what I'm saying is that that's our concern, okay? I don't know if that makes it better or worse. I'm not a real estate expert at all. I'm saying that's our concern, is that we don't want you to wait till it's too late, or now all of a sudden these people's property is a lot less valuable because we've waited 3 to 4 or 5 years to develop the south side of all that, plus all the specials that we've tacked on along the way, and those types of things. Some of them our fault, some of them your fault, okay? You get where we're coming from?
I understand what you're saying.
We want to get all the discussion in. Sir, did you have a comment again?
I've done a little research on this about spot zoning. It's just a description of what they're doing within an area, zoning one little small area within a larger area, and it's actually not encouraged. It's kind of a no-no. You know, it's called spot zoning. And you guys must know about that, I seen that, yeah. You guys must know about that, right? It's
Actually,
not an encouraged practice.
Actually, I don't, but I'm sure Larry can talk to us about that.
Kind of looked like you heard that before. But it's, you know what I'm saying, is what's going on. I like your plan too, like my buddy said back there. I like your plan, I like development, I understand. City can get great taxes out of that area. But we don't want to be the losers, and I've heard you say something about that a couple times, you know, today, that you don't want us to be losers. I think if you're going to zone that area, you might as well zone the whole thing. Then maybe we can get a little something out of it. I'll put a sign when I go home tonight. I'll put a sign right in there, right in my front yard, for sale, industrial lot. And I know I'll get a little something for it. I mean, that would make me sleep better at night.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Bolus, do you have a comment, one comment?
I do, and I want to address Commissioner Wentz's concern a little bit. You know, and part of, you know, I totally understand what you're saying, because if someone does some more development and it's 3 times as big as FedEx and it's bright all day long and trucks 24/7, who'd ever buy a house out there? But we're all assuming that Adam's going to be successful. And he probably doesn't want to hear this, but I represent, you know, when people come to my office, 90% of them go broke after they take a chance. And we're assuming that this is all going to be developed. I mean, I know he's only got 1 potential sale so far. It's nowhere near enough revenue to get down to the south half. And at some point, he's got to be able to swing the bat. Because if he can't sell anything out there, it's going to be a field. It doesn't matter what we zone it to, unless he can get moving. No one's going to make any money out there. It's going to sit where they're at. I mean, one of these gentlemen says they haven't been able to sell his house for, and I don't hear that well, but I think he said like 10 years. Frankly, this could, if Adam's successful, the property should be worth more money. Or at least hopefully it'll be worth more money. And I know that's what Adam's hoping with his lots that he's bought out there already.
Thank you. Mark, you had mentioned that the city had owned some lots. Do we own any lots out there at all? Were those sold a long time ago?
They're all sold.
Okay, and I think, Mark, you also touched on it. One thing, the city, at least I've never been aware, we're not developers, they're developers, others are. We don't go out and buy properties and do buyouts to create developments. That's contrary to what we do. But when people approach us for a development, we have to give it full consideration based on city plans and specs. So I just want to make that clear, that we're not involved in developing this, but we're certainly here to address the question at hand. So.
We took those lots back because they were basically abandoned. And so the county came to us and said, you know, you want to purchase these back for $1, and that's what we did. Wasn't that we're not in the business to develop, we're not in the business to build. It's not our job as government. But we needed to protect that area from different elements as we moved along, and that's why we did that. And quite honestly, the reason we did do that is because of exactly what's sitting in front of you folks tonight, to try to get that area developed. Like Adam said, or Jim said, I mean, if that, everybody knows commercial lots are much more valuable than residential lots. Very much so. So if we can turn this into a successful commercial lots, then you're going to make more money than you are as your residential lot right now. But again, what Adam's saying is he can't afford to do the whole thing at one time. That's where the problem comes in. So.
I have to go up there again? At least we'd get something if you change all that zoning.
But I'm also telling you, sir, that I don't think he can afford to do it all at one time.
No, he might not be able to, but when it comes time that he can, we'll at least get a little something.
I'm sure that's going to be the plan. I mean, the plan, this is not an uncommon thing, you guys, for us to be rezoning pieces of property all over this town in these particular sites I mean, we do it all the time.
I understand. I understand that. I'm just saying, when it comes time for him to do that, we'll already be zoned that. We can still live there. But we'll get a little something extra.
So just so you all do know, you're not, you keep mentioning residential. You're not zoned residential now. You all know that, right? You're ag. You're agriculture. So.
I would just like you to rezone the whole area instead of just the one.
I don't know if we can do that, can we?
Larry, just brief us on whether that's something that could even be entertained, not that we're going to entertain it, but could you even rezone the whole area? Would it require all the owners of the properties to partake in that, or what's the process if you want to do what he's suggesting?
Well, certainly, the entire area could be rezoned. All property owners would need to be a party to that rezoning. And if not, if there was 20% of the property owners in the area being considered under that zoning proposal, then the commission could still go forward with that. However, it would take a 4/5 vote, 4 out of 5 commissioners to vote in support of changing that zoning. But it certainly could be considered.
So tonight, I guess, is my thought would be we could move forward with where we're at, and then when the mayor gets back or down, we could move forward to perhaps rezone everything if we so decide, if that works.
To consider rezoning of the balance of the area, though, however, you would have to, if it was initiated by the commission, you still would have to hold a public hearing, and you'd have to send out notices to all the parties that are affected.
And the development is booming out there. I mean, a year or two, the whole entire area will be full. That's how fast it came up to us. We were sitting there watching for so many years, and all of a sudden it was just, hoppity, and now it's at a full run. It's right on the other side of our road. That area, you guys would be getting your tax money, we would be gone, everything would be beautiful. In a perfect world. But, do you know what I'm saying?
We do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we get back to where we were?
So we're back, and I hope everyone's got their time at the mic, so I guess it's back with the commission again. Any additional comments or questions, or how would you like to handle this request, which is the first reading for rezoning?
I think we should put it on the first reading for rezoning this portion, and then, so at least we don't slow this project down. And then we can come back, the mayor gets back special, and discuss, and maybe I don't know legally if we can or not, what the obstacles are, so there's no promises tonight, but I think the commission has kind of said we'd perhaps like to look at that down the road. Is that fair to say?
I think that's the long-range plan.
I mean, we already know that's our plan, so what's, so I'd make that motion, I guess, to move forward to first reading with this project.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to put it on first reading and approve the rezoning. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And again, like Commissioner Simmons said, we'd like at least look at that option if these people would like to look at that. Now, one question, does it affect residents living within an industrial area as long as they've been there? Is that going to have any bearing? Obviously, they can't sell the properties now because unless they rent them, they're not able to change hands.
Currently, the properties are zoned agricultural. A residential dwelling is allowed as a conditional use within agricultural, meaning that if it is a conditional use under the zoning ordinance, it's considered an allowable use. Those that are there and are not considered non-conforming. So in the real world, one can sell the property to another, and you can occupy it and not have a problem. If it's rezoned, now the residences are automatically non-conforming. So whoever lives there, if there's any disaster, if one moves out for a certain period of time, it cannot be relived in. It has to conform to the zoning that is in place. So in one instance, it may be a hindrance to rezone. In another instance, it may provide the residents with something that clearly is dependable on what can be done there. As a residence, we know from the health department that septic systems are a real issue out in the area. You can't get septic systems in. And so the health department does not recommend that there are any new structures or septic systems put into the area, because those that are there are marginal or failing.
So, bottom line is that if we can rezone this, they still, they're basically grandfathered in, like they are now. Bottom line is they move, then they're gone. And you guys already know that because you're in that position now. So really, to me, this is the best option by far, what we're doing.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a win-win, so let's do it.
All right, well, good.
Good.
Thank you for everyone's comments on that. It's not an easy question. You want to make sure everybody's interests are being taken into consideration. We'll go on to, is there any other non-agenda items? We had one from Chris. Anything beyond that? Then we got a report from Tina Fisk, City Administrator.
I'll make this really quick. I just wanted to let you know that the Building Inspection Department has moved into the remodeled space. We got a certificate of occupancy as of last Wednesday, so right in time for the end of the year. We've already had IT start to move over, and planning and zoning is getting their stuff in the area situated. Larry's gonna have a deadline on when he can get his stuff moved. There's a little bit of holdup on the reception area. They're trying to finish up the countertop today so they can get the marble in. The walls weren't, you know how it is when you have new, old, the walls weren't quite level, and so they've got to recut the countertop. But other than that, they figured they'd have that done by the end of the week, and they're working on punch list items. So everyone should be in there and situated pretty soon, and then we'll get the signage going and be open for business all throughout. Once it's all cleaned up and we've got all the punch list items out, and we've got all of our signage up inside the building and in these rooms, then I'd like to work with you guys to set a date for an open house.
Awesome.
And just invite the public in and just let them see what's been accomplished. So, other than that, we're just working on year-end items and hiring the beginning of the year employees, and it's all going well.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any other items to address tonight? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
In favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting is
Just gotta
adjourned.
figure out
Thank
what
you.
day it'd be over here.
Well, it wouldn't matter because